Hello my little learners, you can call me Lovegood and I hope you enjoy this video. Here are just a few things before we get started. Today I'm presenting you with Ghostly Bonds by KittyKqt on AO3. Thank you so much KittyKqt for letting me podfic this if you ever somehow find this. Little learners, please go give your love to the author of this fic. The link to this fic will be in a pinned comment by me on this video, and any warnings to this fic will be in the description on this video. I apologise if my voice acting is bad, I'm trying to improve as much as I can. But anyways, thank you for tuning in to listen to me, but that's enough of my rambles and jambles, and let's get right into the fic. Just a slight quick note before we start. I'm sorry that this is a little bit more airy than my other ones. It's like that because I'm in a different room. I really need to get a microphone, but for now we're trying to use my phone mic and we're in a different space, so it's a little bit more airy, so I'm sorry about that. This is Chapter 5, Remember When, by Wallows. Summary: Izuku learns to grow up. Quick author's notes before we get started. Notes: this chapter contains depictions of dealing with death. Please be warned. On a writer's note, this chapter ends the start of what I wanted to write about. It opens up for the shenanigans I wanted. I also love Izuku and the detective. I don't know why. And that is the end of the author's notes. Let's get right into chapter 5. This is a shorter chapter, so probably in one video. He didn't know how long he fell for, but he gave up trying to get away from the feeling, accepting it, until he came crashing back with a sudden jolt. He jumped, his not body becoming ice cold again as he scanned his environment. He was still in his apartment bathroom, but something felt off about it. His mom and the detective were no longer around him, the bathroom completely empty, completely. His mom's towels and her bathroom decor were fully gone. He tried to float forward, but it was like he had just died again. He stumbled forward, twisting in the air and trying to rebalance himself. He took a deep breath, shutting his eyes tightly and wheeling the ropes back up. It took longer than usual, but the monochromatic landscape came up again. But there were no ropes to grab. He opened his eyes, confused, scanning the empty bathroom again. What had happened? He left the bathroom slowly, trying to steady his breathing as he did so. Not that he needed to breathe, but the notion helped in times of stress. It wasn't just the bathroom. The entire apartment was empty. He passed through his mom's bedroom, finding nothing there either. It had all been taken out. He floated to his room, frowning when he found all his stuff gone. His notebooks were gone, as well as his bedspread and his All Might posters. He bit his lip and moved as fast as he could, stumbling to look at the fire escape. He sighed, finding his newest notebook still safely tucked away. Good. He left it where it was for now, floating back inside. There was nothing of his apartment or of his mum. And without the ropes, he had no way to find her. How long had he been out for? He left the house, heading downstairs to Paul's place. She wasn't in the house, but he wasn't looking for her. He glanced at her calendar on the wall, stumbling back when he saw the date. He had been out for 2 months. The UA entrance exam was in 2 more months. He had lost so much time. And his mum? Was she okay? He left the house, trying to move as fast as he could to where he thought the police station was. If he found the detective, he could find his mum. He was always around her. He phased through people, still not having full control of his form as he tried to understand what had happened. He had given his mum energy, and had been falling for 2 months. He needed to know if his mum was okay. He finally made it back to the police station, phasing through the walls and moving through the building. Officers were dealing with paperwork and drinking in the break room, but he was looking for the head office in particular. He finally found it at the end of the hall, phasing through the door. Of course, the detective wasn't there, and he had no way to find him, not without his ropes. He scanned the desk for anything useful, trying the top papers first, but there was nothing. Nothing. He sighed, trying to push energy into his fingers to move the paper. It should have been easy enough, but the paper went right through his fingers. He tried again, pushing with more energy, but failing again and again. His vision started dotting, and he sighed, stopping. He didn't want to be knocked out for another 2 months. He flopped back, hovering mid-air as he released a breath. Being dead sucked when you had no idea what was happening. He floated around the precinct for some time, trying to figure out what each officer was doing. Officer Sansa, the cat one, was working on a domestic violence case, something about a pro hero. It looked pretty old from the date on it, as he set it to the side, grabbing another. Another officer was scanning letters and correcting them on the computer, slowly drinking a cup of coffee. For a police precinct, it was extremely boring around here, especially when you couldn't even lift a piece of paper. Finally, as he was about to give up hope, the detective walked in, hanging his hat on the hanger by the door. Izuku immediately perked up, floating behind him. He looked more tired than when Izuku had last seen him, his stubble growing out and his hair longer on the top. Where was Izuku's mum? Was she okay? Morning, guys, the detective muttered, greeting the officers. Hey, Tsukuchi, Officer Sansa said, grinning at him. Got a fresh pot brewed just for you. The detective grinned, rubbing his eyes before tapping the top of Officer Sansa's desk, walking into the break room. No, Izuku needed to know if his mom was okay, not for the detective to get a coffee right now. He tried to flick the mug off the counter, but nothing happened, same as before. He didn't have enough energy to touch anything, and it just made him more useless. Luckily, the detective was quick as he poured himself a steaming mug and took it to his office, just waving to everyone else. He set the cup on his desk, sighing and stretching his back out. I need to shave, he muttered, rubbing at his chin, as he shut the door behind him and sat at the desk. Izuku grabbed his wrist quickly, hoping that he would be able to touch the man, but he couldn't. His hand just slipped right through, like it had the entire day. Things could not get worse for him right now. He didn't know if his mum was alive and he had gone back to being able to do nothing. It was frustrating. He floated above the detective, watching as he sorted through the many files, hoping to see anything about his mum. Maybe in a doctor's note or a patient record, but nothing. Not a single Midoriya inkle on the pages. He would just have to follow the detective for the day, until he saw his mum. There was no way she was dead. She wouldn't do something like that. Izuku was the selfish one, not her. She was getting better, too. It wasn't fair. He hung around all day, shadowing the detective most of the time. He let him go to the bathroom alone, of course, but any other time he would be watching him. Maybe he would pull out his phone and text his mum. Maybe she would call and would pick up and Izuku would hear her voice. But nothing. All day. He learned nothing about his mum. He groaned, leaning over the detective to see his last paperwork of the day. The sky outside was fully dark, probably around midnight if he had to guess. He was too lazy to leave the office and find out the time. The detective turned the page before Izuku had finished reading, making him scoff. Without thinking, he reached forward, pushing energy into his fingers as he had in the past. The page rustled just barely, flipping to the previous one. Izuku blinked, glancing down at his hands. He had touched something. Hell yeah! He screamed, flipping in the air. The detective frowned, flipping the page back before Izuku could read what he missed. He grinned, reaching for the paper again, biting his lip in excitement when it flicked back. The detective sighed, shutting the entire packet and leaving his table. Rude. Izuku tried to grab for the heavier packet, but his hand slipped right through again. He groaned, following the detective out of the office, assuming he was just going for another mug of coffee. He rarely drank a lot. But he grabbed his hat from the hanger and Izuku perked up. Night, guys, the detective murmured to the new night shift officers, waving goodbye. Izuku followed him out into the air, noticing the way he shivered even in his trench coat. It must have been freezing. He could walk fast enough for Izuku, as he made sure to stay right behind him. Scared to lose him in the night commute crowd, he could just form another rope, but he didn't know if it would work, and the way the detective had seen him there still freaked him out slightly. Why didn't he just take a car? It would have made it so much easier for Izuku to track him, instead of the streets. Luckily, it was so late that the trains were quiet enough. Izuku stared down at his hands, trying to visualize the energy running to the end of his fingertips, but he could never actually see it. To him, he looked normal, alive. The train finally stopped, and Izuku breathed out a sigh of relief, looking to the detective to see if he moved. He luckily did, and Izuku followed him out of the train and onto the streets. If he just tried his ropes, he could figure this out, but he didn't want to risk it. He couldn't let his mum know, and if something went wrong and the detective saw him, Izuku could ruin everything again. He arrived at a basic-looking apartment building, much like Izuku's own, even though it was on the other side of the city. He entered the bottom-floor apartment, so Izuku phased behind him, trying to search for anything, any sign of his mum. Hey, Uncle, the detective said, and Izuku flipped around to face the door that creaked open in the hallway. Mom, you eat yet? His mum looked alright, far skinnier than she had been in years, but she was alive. He floated over to her, taking in her features slowly. He thought he had lost her. He couldn't live with himself if he did, not like he had a choice, but he was already dead. His mum laughed slightly, opening the fridge. She was alive. Izuku sighed, plopping himself on the counter, managing to stay afloat just above it. She looked worse for wear, but she was alive. I had a sandwich for lunch today, PB&J. She pulled a water from the fridge, setting it on the counter beside Izuku. The detective sighed, shaking his head. The med's upsetting your appetite? He asked, pulling up a bar stool alongside Mum. She nodded slightly before shrugging. I guess. Still just getting used to it all. Thank you for letting me stay here, Namasa, she said, leaning onto the counter slightly. He nodded, smiling softly. I'm glad to have you as long as you need. How's therapy going? Izuku smiled, resting his elbows on his knees. His mum was doing better, getting therapy and on medication to help her. She was doing everything correctly. He was so proud of her. I'm good. He says I'm making progress. She sighed, picking up her water and drinking some. Nights are still really hard for me. I keep thinking I can hear Izuku. She pulled her hair behind her shoulders, wiping away already forming tears. He got his tears from her. He floated around, trying to stop himself from crying as well. It did nothing anymore. Not that it ever had. The apartment was sparse for the most part, but his mum's plants and pictures decorated the area. He floated up, looking at a familiar picture on the wall. He had drawn it when he was 5, with bag crayons and ripped paper he found on the floor. It was an awful drawing of him and Karchan as heroes. Number 1, it screamed in loud letters at the top of them in messy handwriting. He had asked his mum how to spell it correctly. He reached for it, just to see if he could hold it again. His hand slipped and it clattered to the floor loudly, the glass shattering inside. What was that? Mum asked, twisting around quickly. Izuku bit his lip as the detective frowned, picking it up. Izuku's picture. It must have slipped off the hook. He turned around to Mum, immediately setting the broken picture on the counter and taking her hand as it trembled. I'll get it reframed tomorrow, okay? Wanna go watch a movie? His mum just stared at the now blank spot on the wall, tears running down her face. Okay, she finally said, letting the detective lead her away. Izuku had messed up again. He wiped his tears, floating away and out of the apartment. Mum was fine without him. He needed to let her go. He stayed outside the apartment until hours had passed before floating back and touching both of their wrists. It would be good to have an anchor to check in with his mum, but he couldn't stay with her. He had to grow up, even if he was dead. He didn't say anything when he touched them both. Just letting the two of them sleep in each other's arms, she could finally have the life she deserved. And that is it for chapter 5. Sorry my voice is so shaky. I've got a bad throat, but I had time to record between my exams, so I definitely took it. This was an amazing chapter, a bit shorter, so I could read it a bit easier all in one. There are a few little author's notes. Next chapter, we meet more of our favourite characters. Who would you like to see in Hero All Might's power? Ooh, so that's something I have read this fic, and this is a reread. I love doing this because I get to refresh my memory. In the comments, who do you think is gonna get one for all? I can't really comment on it because I know who's gonna get one for all. I think if you look at the tags, you might be able to see it. Yeah, you can. Oh, it's not who I thought it was. Okay, I remembered wrong. Wait, how does that happen then? I can't remember. Okay, that was a surprise. I know it was one of two, but it was I wasn't expecting it to be that one. I'm rambling, ignore that. So yeah. I don't know where that just went. Next chapter, I think. I don't know. Anyway, my little Lunas, that is all for this one. I hope you have a loontastic time whenever and wherever you may be. You can call me Lovegood, and that was chapter 5 of Ghostly Bonds on AO3. I'll see you again next time. Bye, little Lunas!